Ladies and gentlemen, not only is it us, 1, 2, 3, the three amigos, but we are bringing you a first in broadcasting history. You may see there that Tony looks a little unwell. I looked away just in time, but I still saw too much. Chris is wearing what we call in the trade a bespoke outfit today. It looks like it's fashioned from the curtains in the room he's in, and I can assure you the cuffs do indeed match the collar.
Just as well it's not green screen, H. Just as well it's not green screen, as it would be in trouble.
Holy moly. I tell you something, few white men have seen it. Now, I can actually go and have a lie down now. I can seriously. So, Chris, how was the gangbang on the flight? All good?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, well done, BA.
Right, gentlemen, I've gathered you here to witness the passing of our dear Aunt Dolly, because it looks to me as if the old girl may be gearing up to snuff it, and I like my funerals to start early. Preferably still in the palliative care ward.
And with some clothes on as well, ideally, would be a good idea.
I don't think I'm going to recover. I don't think I'm going to recover.
He did that just when we started recording.
I don't think, you know,
it's like a photo, isn't it? Except with genitalia.
Just for context, I've just got out of bed and.
Well, I mean, all I can tell you is you've certainly made sure we can't hear anything with the individuals, the poor lost souls that are still in the bed. There's not even any muffled off noises. But I didn't know you could still buy those sort of Army and Navy surplus sorts of undergarment.
Fruit of the Loom from Walmart. You want to try it? They're amazing.
I'll tell you what, the old line from Tim Sherwood springs to mind. Anybody who forgets her kit will be running around the pitches with her underpants. So, gentlemen, how, at the risk of igniting the touch paper and retiring, how are we feeling about this, the latest fiasco at Tottenham Hotspurs?
Same Enoch, no change. Rebadged, repurposed as the Lewis family, absolutely no change. You've got all this nonsense and hot air about 100 million being pumped into the club for investment in the transfer window, and the token effort was a outlay of 13 million for a Brazilian kid none of us have ever heard of. Conor Gallagher, yeah, all right, and then some Scottish kid who's going to sit in the under 21s and never see any first team football at all.
Yeah, I don't hold much hope for that kid. I had a look at James this morning. And yeah, okay, there will be some people out there getting excited about it. I should tidy this office up, really, considering people are getting to see it on a more regular basis than in real life. But yeah, don't hold up much hope for that at all. It only serves as well to reinforce the truth that our academy is so poor that everybody gets loaned out and nobody comes through. So while we get excited over some, I have to say it without any malice in my heart, some other no-mark who's aged 18 or whatever, just doesn't quite stack up. Tony, what is the mood like in the Furabunker this morning?
We have ways of not spending.
It's actually a colossal mess. I'm going to posit this idea because I appreciate we could talk for hours about how disappointed we are, but it might not make for the most gripping viewing. So we're really disappointed. I would posit the idea that Spurs are brutal. And this will lead me on to my next thing, which I'm going to address fairly, because I know people in the past have accused me of not addressing it fairly, and I came out yesterday, and I'm doing it. I did it this morning on the .com. So what are your ideas in? Because otherwise people just say you're throwing stones. So I've got together a little charter, if you like, little bullet point list of things we could do and things which have been proven historically to be successful. But what is what I think ENIC are a bunch of nasty people, and I think they're not going anywhere in a hurry because under Western law, under which we bask, because nobody wants to live in Venezuela, you can't just say, you're going home. We own this now. And I think that their business model is based around profit and loss, and they always make a profit. And that the what they're doing in this window, I think, has been quite cynical. I think it's evident that when you go into a football match and you've got so many players absent through whatever reason, and it could be form, incidentally. A manager is not obligated to pick anybody unless they train well and they perform well. But I think they've taken a look at this window and made a decision based upon the maths of the table, which is what they did last season. They made the decision upon the maths of the table. It's highly unlikely, or rather, it's improbable. It's implausible to suggest that Spurs would get sent down unless we went into full-blown reverse. And I think they're looking at the summer and they're thinking about what would happen if we were closer to going down than we are right now. And I'm not saying it's like that scene in Star Trek where they're saying, brace yourselves when they go into battle with the Klingons. But I think we're pretty close to that. And that is one of the reasons they haven't spent. We all know they've got the money. But does anybody else feel that? Because
I'd like to expand on that, H. I'd like to expand on that and say from the Champions League qualification, they've already got more money than they had from the Europa League last year.
Well, they had 43 million they've got in the bank from the Champions League, which I know they haven't got in their pocket because I'm not 12. I'm not suggesting you were hinting at that, but some people at home are a little bit, And they also got 35 million from Brennan Johnson. So there's plenty of loose cash there. And we've made, I think, a trading profit of 15 million, if I'm not incorrect. So there's tons of cash floating around, and we were threatened by reputable people telling us that they were going to drop 100, 150 mil, something in those regions. And equally, even if they didn't threaten that, if it wasn't announced or guessed at by anybody, we know they've got the money. They're still in the top 10 Deloitte Money League, blah, 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 blah. What do you think, Chris? What do you think the strategy here of ENIC has been?
I think, and as much as we don't like it, I think it might be becoming clearer and clearer and clearer that come the summer, they're hoping Pochettino returns to the club, and they're thinking perhaps Frank's not the man for them, and they're holding on to the cash. And we've been told it many times before, and we've never seen it, so it may well not happen again. But I wouldn't be surprised if they think in the summer, let's throw 200-300 million at whoever the man is that comes through the door. The cash is there. They haven't backed the guy currently. We've got injuries left, right, and centre. You look at Crystal Palace, very close to us. They've just blown 100 million. Yes, 100 million possibly not well spent on the Norwegians, Strawn Larsen from Wolves, Brennan Johnson. They got who's the lad they got on loan from Aston Villa, Gusan.
Gusan, yeah.
So they've done business. We could have done business. We haven't. I think more to this than meets the eye, and I think things will become a bit clearer after the World Cup.
That's an interesting possibility. I'm not going to attack it because everybody knows, I think, at this stage, that my view on Pochettino is that ship has sailed. It was something.
Yeah.
This is one of those things which I've done because I'm a grown-up and I'm allowed to admit my mistakes as part of being a grown-up. You go back to an X. And X's are X's for reasons. And I don't speak from the weird, atypical circumstances of my twisted, depraved life, but they don't work. They really don't work. Sometimes they do, but 99% of the time they don't. And Pochettino famously said a couple of things that should irk people. One is that the trophies are for egos, and the other was that this is a beautiful house, but it has no furniture. Now, it is, I have to say, wishful, I think, is not unreasonable reply to the fact that suddenly we're going to unleash £250,000 on him, which I think he needs an opening offer. I think anybody would need an opening bid to try and refresh the mess. Because the big thing for me, and I'll just throw this one out actually, because as I'm doing this almost hosting impression this week, but do you even think though, and yes, we are allowed to mention last season, do you even think if everybody who's fit, who isn't fit, comes back fit, we're actually going to rock and roll?
No,
Or are we doing that Tottenham thing where we're bigging them up because we haven't seen them for a while?
I'm not advocating Pochettino coming back. I'm just saying sitting
No,
here,
absolutely.
looking in, it seems more and more likely. But we need a complete factory reset, and those players like Richarlison, they still need to go. Ben Davies, bless him, he will be going, and we need to start with a blank canvas. We won't have European football next season, so we'll be in a position of Man United. And look at Man United. No European football, splashed 200 million in the summer. Yeah, they had started off with managerial issues, but now they're what, fifth, 5 points, 6 points off of third place. So they will be playing European football next season. But it all comes back to a wider issue, and that's Johan Lang and Vinay. If these owners have got anything about them, they will fuck them off very quickly, because those two are bad news. They're incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. Arsenal, head and shoulders over everybody in the league. They've won that league, and perhaps will go on to win the Champions League. They don't get rid of bad people. They got rid of Vinay Ventilation. What does that tell you? And then we got a bloke here, Johan Lang, who is not seemingly, he is useless, incompetent. And if it was one of us three, we'd have been given our P45 now and said thanks, but no thanks. But the complete disorganisation and chaos in the club, they're all patting each other on the back saying we've done a great job, because they're idiots, they're buffoons, they're clowns. The idiots are running the asylum. Things will need to change.
Well, we've said it before, Chris, haven't we? That the fact is, and we've said this in many podcasts and more recently, that this is what happens when you have accountants and spreadsheet merchants running a club. There's not a football. There's not even Johan Lang, who supposedly comes from a football background. I haven't seen any evidence of it. The fact that Aston Villa couldn't wait to get rid of him, and everybody was delighted that he'd gone. When you recruit people to come to your club to try and enhance the transfer strategy, whatever it is they're trying to do, you do it to improve over what you've got and for them to make an impact. He has been, if anything, he's made a negative impact on the club. He's actually taken his transfer strategies, his selections, his choices. Him and Paratici have made us worse. You can argue that Simmons had a decent second half the other day. I'm sure we'll get onto the game, and he shows it in fits and starts. And I'm sure there's like we said, we think there's a player there. But when you look at the majority of the signings, you look at the inactivity of the transfer window, you look at us as a whole, there is no footballing ambition within this club. It's all about profit. And that's the only thing that's going to drive these people. The Lewis has made a big, bold claim. And I've yet to see any form of action, regardless of that. They've done all they can to get rid of Levy. Yeah, great, fantastic. But actually, Levy's looking like a bit of a decent bloke at the moment.
Do you know what? They're incompetent buffoons if they think that they're going to roll Daniel Levy over, because for everything we think of him, he is a shithouse, and he got to where he was through being scrupulous, underhand, and knowing how to play the game. If he turns around and sells those shares to the Chinese consortium that he's allegedly in talks with, that potentially creates a power struggle at the club, because the Chinese aren't buying that to have a majority shareholding. They will eventually push for full control.
There won't be a power struggle because the Chinese have got ridiculous amounts of money available. They make Joe Lewis look like a pauper.
Yeah, so, but Viv Lewis really doesn't get on with Daniel Levy. She's trying to flex her biceps. Eyes not on the football, it's on trying to get one over on Danny Boy, and she's just making herself alongside her brothers and sisters look, what we know, absolute clowns.
Yep,
I would say I would just throw in, because I've seen some, and I'm not accusing anybody here of that, but I've certainly seen it on X and on Facebook, of course, where all the intellectuals hang out. But this business of a power struggle is very much a financial one. And people seem to think, seem to think of it as like when you're playing marbles in the school playground, the kid with the most marbles is the cool kid. The reality is this is very much economic, and I find it quite bemusing that people look at these, should we say, for want of a better word, Bond villain scenarios from a perspective of, oh, no good will come of it. Well, you show me a thread, a shadow of good that's come out of our involvement with ENIC. and I'll show you a big fat lie. You're sitting on a throne of fibs. And it's one of those things where they'll sink their money in, and it's like buying stock, but in the kind of real top end of the thing where you don't just, you have shares, and you will have sway, but you're still, even with Daniel Levy's shares, you're a long way off actually making sure that we could play in a red shirt, for example. For that to happen, you'd need to do a Venky, as did he at Cardiff, and you'd have to own 100% or whatever the voting regulations were. So I'm not fearful of that. I mean, Chinese, do you know something? I couldn't care if the Khmer Rouge took over Spurs, or the real IRA. You can't tell, or the Salvation Army. I can't imagine anything that could put a bad spin on where we are at the moment. And so any conversation down that route, yeah, let's talk about it by all means. But I won't be living under my bed, with a tinfoil hat on, waiting for the sky to fall on my noggin.
Ultimately, the ownership is not going to change, is it? At the moment, it's not going to change, and that's the biggest problem we've got. Is that regardless, and I think you're right, Chris. There is going to be some form of power struggle, but the Lewis family still hold all the cards unless they're willing to sell, or they get leveraged out of it in some fashion, which would be very difficult considering that they own the club. It's private. It's not like they could do a hostile takeover, is it, or anything like that?
No.
But even so, it could still create problems, couldn't it? As you say, brand image, I think, was one of the things you were talking about, wasn't it? Reputational damage. I think
when the house of cards crumbles, it crumbles, and these guys have got to realise sometimes to protect your investment, you have to invest, and there's been no signs of that. Your primary focus once upon a time was as a football club. Now we're a sports entertainment business with so many revenue coming in from elsewhere, not related to on-field activity. They couldn't care. But it's the mismanagement of the squad. Like, look, on Sunday, we finished with two centre-backs, two central midfielders, predominantly central midfielders at centre-back. We've got two right-backs out. What Premiership club allows themselves so weak in that position? And even if we won't go buy people, why don't you recall that centre-back that's on loan at Stoke?
Viskovic. You got Ashley Phillips, haven't you? Ashley Phillips?
Yeah, because you might be dog shit, but it's better, at least he's an actual centre-back as opposed to putting a square peg in a round hole. And then the whole approach to, like, Helium Boy was absolutely terrible on Sunday. And many months ago, we were all championing him being returned to Turkey via a boat. But now he's come back in. We're all saying, oh, yeah, he's been all right. He's been decent. No, he isn't. He's another feature in the long term of the club. Another that we need to push out the aeroplane without a parachute. But our mismanaged squad is pathetic.
Bissouma is not a curious one. Bissouma is a very black and white one. It's a very open book. And I thought, in particular, anybody who hadn't really understood how things were. Yes, he took a couple of shots in the previous game, but one swallow, as we were taught at school, does not make a summer. But Bissouma was wandering around like, I think your line before, Chris, about having lead weights in the soles of his boots, as if somebody had pranked him in the changing rooms, but he was so thick he didn't notice. And to me, he looked like he didn't want to be there. The City game, just briefly, I think showed by who wasn't there. And yes, Cusi Romero, I'm looking at you. That there does exist an esprit de corps within the Spurs best 11, which is effectively the 11 that's left after everybody else has fallen over or has twanged something. But the squad is so far away, and this has always been this season has been my thing. This business of picking holes in Frank's tactics. I mean, this is like you've got a block of cheese and you've got two slices of bread that are kind of, and a smudge of butter, and then you're complaining that the chef has brought out a cheese sandwich. What did you have in mind? Lobster thermidor?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got what you've got, and I mean, yes, you can argue that things have been mismanaged and there's been relationship breakdowns, but it's all very guessy. But the reality is there isn't a lot of quality there. But they clearly believe that come the revolution, come everybody being well again, we're going to be superstars. What is there a sound echo going
yeah,
off
I
here?
can hear you echoing.
No, I can't. It's fine.
Yeah,
Fine with me.
I think it might be you.
But just going back to that point, though.
Windows down in case.
We can't. Yes, we can criticise, Frank when he gets things wrong, but he clearly got something right at half time on Sunday, and I think there was elements of it in his reaction when the first goal went and we threw the bottle down. He threw the coconut water down or whatever it is they bloody drink. There's special electrolytes and God knows what.
Tropical island in the sun. Never miss a trick, kids. That's the advice.
Absolutely. Muppet Christmas Carol all the way. But it was what was really good actually. I was quite pleased to see that reaction, because that to me was externalizing something that I think people have been wanting to do with get Frank to do, was to actually show that he's really chucked off with this lot and he's starting to get into them. And I think whilst they were very careful in their language at full time about what was said, but clearly what was said was a bit of a hairdryer sort of situation about, look, regardless of where you are as a player, regardless of the fact we've got all this team, we've got all this going on, we've got this going on, get out there and just bloody perform, at least try, at least give it a go. And that was very evident in the second half. So again, as I said, I know it's only one half of football, and we've seen intermittent bits of that, and we would love to get it for 40, for 2:45s as opposed to 1:45.
Yeah.
But if you're going to criticise, you've also got to give him the credit.
Yeah, correct. I think you're right. You can't have it both ways, and we're very easy and to wade in on managers. I'm a little bit softer, based upon the fact that I simply don't see anything more than a block of cheese and 2 slices of bread and a smudge of butter in the fridge. So I'm guessing what's coming out of the kitchen is going to look an awful lot somewhere between a croque monsieur and a cheese butty. I have no higher expectations. I'm not expecting a wedding cake or some Southeast Asian finger food. I know what we've got in the larder. So just tell me, I mean, just touching on this Romero business. Now, I've made my position clear. I haven't changed. I don't really want to hear from him. But he appears to be, I think he's hell-bent on making his exit strategy look digestible. But does anybody have anything, more forgiving to say about him? Because he's definitely going to war with them now. We had the comment in January, and now we've had it in February.
Well, he's in the fortunate position where he's fairly bulletproof, isn't he? He's going to continue earning a massive salary. He can say what he wants, knowing that they're pretty spineless and pretty weak individuals who might just say, "Oh, we didn't like that. Can you delete a few words from your Twitter release?" And ultimately, in the summer, I dare say him and Van der Ven will both be leaving the club. In the case of Van der Ven for footballing reasons and ambition. But these people are thick-skinned and they don't understand the message, unlike us as working men and football fans who see what he's trying to do. I'm not a big Romero fan, but I applaud him for this because I think it's just about making people's lives uncomfortable, and he's certainly doing that.
I think that's fair enough. I agree with that.
Tony, tell us all about it.
Yeah. Don't worry, I've got cream for that, so that's okay.
I liked the hairdryer thing earlier. I thought, when's the last time Tony saw a hairdryer?
I saw a hairdryer. I saw a hairdryer only recently. I saw it and I walked past it. That was about as much as I could do with it, to be bluntly honest. So
there's a man describing a ride in a Ferrari. That's what we've got there.
Yeah, but basically, yeah. But fine, okay, Romero. Yeah, you're chuffed off, but equally, you're paid to play, not paid to stroll around like you own the club, and you're not playing. I mean, every time it was so noticeable. I said it in the chat. It was so noticeable. I know that probably the hairdryer or the angriness, whatever you want to call it, was instigated at half time when we came out a completely different side. But it was also so noticeable that when Romero was gone, we actually had a sense of urgency. Now I know that was probably down to the whatever was said. So you can argue that as well. But instead of just sort of sitting there with the ball, having a look round, what am I going to do? Should I pass it? Oh, I might pass it this way, or I might pass it that way, at 3 miles an hour. There was a sense of urgency. We started passing the ball forward, and we started passing the ball forward to players in forward positions. And it's amazing what happens when you pass the ball forward and when you pass the ball to players in forward positions. That's called attacking. Yeah, and before you know it, we actually start having attack after attack. It was really good to see. I know. It's heresy, I tell you, heresy. But ultimately, and this goes, and I've said this on the chat, it's noticeable to me that and again, I'm only surmising like I just said about, we don't know all these things. But, there's lots of words coming out from the likes of Van der Ven and Romero. And I also think that they're agitators within the club, within the squad. Yeah. And they're using their agenda to upset other people as well, to try and sort of like just create a disharmony. So because they don't like Frank, they don't want to play with him, they don't want to work for him. Fine. Tell you what, how about you go away instead of sort of like we change the manager? I know there's evidence to say we should change the manager, but ultimately they should be putting they're getting paid 150 grand a week, whatever it is they're getting paid, just to do a job, and they're not even doing that very well at the moment. So once they've demonstrated on the pitch they're giving it their all, but the tactics aren't working, the manager isn't working, I'd be down with that. But they're not doing that, and as far as I'm concerned, their opinion right now is valueless to me. Yes, it's good that they're agitating, but in the public, in terms of ENIC, I get that, but that still doesn't tell me that they're actually playing. They should be playing. That squad on Sunday in the second half wasn't a squad that had given up on the manager.
Let's talk about our favourite. Let's talk about our favourite spastic, Vicario. How was that spaz again?
Honestly, for those of you, for those of you can't do that. It's 2026. Yes, I can. But no, it's for those of you compiling a blooper reel of defiant, arrogant, disconnected from the human race Italians. There was plenty of footage there for you. Endless shouting, pointing. And I noticed, I don't know if he's done it, because I actually am quite cynical. This may come as a shock to you, but I'm quite cynical. And I've noticed that sometimes now, or frequently now, there's somebody trying to get out there. Somebody nearly came loose from the radiator he had them tied to there. He's looking a bit concerned over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Damn right. But he's now doing this thing where the ball goes upfield, and then you can see him remonstrating with people, knowing full well that the camera isn't on him. So he's not going to be dubbed as the guy who's shouting at people after the blunder, which 99% of the time he's been involved in. So yeah, he had another dreadful game, but I think it's like that thing from what was that bowling movie with
Kingpin?
He's Munson.
Yeah.
And I think it's now in the language. How was Vicario? Well, he Vicario'd his way through the game. I mean, you just apostrophe D his surname. So I wonder as well, just based upon what you were saying there about those two other charming people that may not have the club's interests at heart. None of them do, kids. None of them do. But those two in particular that we've named, I wonder if they have reached a mindset, the same mindset that we have, perhaps, that I know we can put pressure on the club because we know whoever they get in, it's still going to be us digging them out of the guano. Because they're spending money erratically, poorly, and very poorly. And so, yeah, bring another coach in, because that makes you look even less like a responsible recruiter, which as we know, ENIC are not a responsible recruiter, because we now find out, or we now found ourselves having these, I have to say, frankly, mind-blowing discussions where we've said, well, these winners with great CVs, tremendous history of making an impact in the sport, they don't work at Spurs. So now let's analyze some bloke from, say, Ipswich, or some bloke from Hull City, or some bloke from Birmingham, because you're looking so deep into your navel, you're actually seeing where your mummy and your daddy made you.
But I mean, haven't we forgotten, H, though? Yeah, haven't we forgotten that? One of the things that, quite right, it's been said, and Chris has said it many, many times, is that football is a results business, and ultimately the manager is responsible. But in this particular scenario, we've had many managers much better quality than we've got with Thomas Frank, who have also not been able to succeed. So you can only blame a manager for what's happening right now. Absolutely, I get that. But you've then got to look at a pattern overall and go back, well, let's look at our performances over the last 10 or 25 years with ENIC. So we know that. And the same problem, we have a consistent problem with managers. And the only consistent factor in all of that is ENIC.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is the point. I think that any reasonable thinking man on an omnibus going up the Charing Cross Road, or whatever the phrase is.
On an omnibus, sir? Was that with your penny farthing, sir?
Oh, take please, any more fares? But no, I think it's only reasonable to say, well, okay, let's get Poch back. And like I've said to you previously on ER, on an emotional level, on a give me a hug Band-Aid level, what a lovely idea. Let's put what's its name back in as the Celtic manager. Let's bring so and so. You know, we're getting the band back together. Blah blah blah. But the reality is ENIC, the company, the firm that denied him what he wanted the first time around, going to change its spots? And I think we've seen evidenced in this window that it doesn't matter if Daniel Levy is there or he isn't. That the business model remains the same. So I'm going to throw this one at you, because this is the thing I put out with yesterday. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, Chris, because Chris, as you may know, folks, is committing burglaries across Europe, and he's currently the gentleman thief Raffles himself, stalking the corridors of power in his underpants. On behalf of the podcast, hopefully
taking part in his own version of a Saw movie, probably. I think it would.
Well, I must say, I'm not in Europe. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, the US, and this is a great place.
Yeah,
a man's.
And for those people who know what we are familiar with the television program, What We Do in the Shadows, that'll be Tucson, Arizona.
Oh yes. We can always rely on Tony for a pertinent film quote.
So
Jackie Daytona. So for people who are in the know,
5 a.m. to talk to you bastards.
Well, that's all right. We're very grateful, and you know our gratitude is better than money. So
I'll put it out there.
I'm going to touch on Change for Tottenham, and I'm going to touch on the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, because
not going to touch them literally, are you? You're not going to touch them.
Well, I'm also going to use the phrase two cheeks of the same back bottom. After what you did, Chris, before we went on hit the record button, I don't think you're in a position to get queasy talking about back bottoms. But the reality is they're two. Well, normally I have to pay for this sort of thing. But
prevert, he's a prevert, isn't he? He's not a pervert. He's a prevert. It's before he becomes a pervert.
That tweet I sent you in the early hours of this morning when you were suffering from insomnia, or
that was my first. I've had a nap since then.
You got back from some dirty old wench's house, one of the two. But the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust meeting, and you looked, and it looked like a wake. Everybody in there was the wrong side of 70.
It looked like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Actually,
like the waiting room, Dignitas. I looked at that. I thought, honestly, pass me a gun. I'm gonna shoot myself.
Well, I actually took one for the team, and I went through their 5 pillars of Islam, or whatever it is they've contrived here. What's the matter, Tony? Sometimes is it someone in the room telling you jokes? Can't be me. So, and it's absolute hogwash. It is all dancing on the head of a pin, saying we'd like to run the club, and everything's masked, all the language about fan liaison, blah, blah. Well, anyway, I have a news flash, which is you've all heard before. I'm not going to use the Golden Mile quote, but you know it's in my head. There are some people. Let's think of Michael Caine as Alfred Tennyson in Batman, and he said, some people you just simply cannot negotiate with. Money, jewels, whatever it is, they don't care. They're just here to hit the button and everything goes kaboom.
You don't negotiate with people who hold all the cards, H. You can't negotiate with people who hold all the cards.
Equally, you cannot. Paris, remember that.
And you cannot negotiate with people who don't care if you take their cards and set fire to them. These are people who are operating within their own sphere, their own sort of galaxy ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, of right and wrong. And they're dangerous, very, very dangerous people. So I've maintained the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. I called for them to be disbanded many, many years ago because I saw through them the moment they operated. £10 a ticket for a life membership, but they don't actually show you how much money they got in the bank. I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm just saying that that's something I don't want to donate towards. That sucks. Now we've got the change for Tottenham thing, which I understand Chris may have met one or two people, or all of them, I don't know. They're decent people. I'm not going to argue the point because I think there's a lot of people in the fan base who are decent. However, we've had the results in from the Mexican judge after the Manchester City game, and two things are absolutely not up for debate. One is there was a guy in the walkways, or whatever you call it, the corridor of the airport, the Soul Harvest device, the stadium. Nobody left on the 75th minute. There were no empty seats. They were humiliated. Now, I don't say that to have an attack upon them. I'm just telling you what happened because they put out a lot of material. The last time they only had a couple of hundred. Those couple of hundred got their fingers burnt on that. So anyway, my point being is I think we've established, just like we have with Enoch being the consistent element in the puzzle, as Tony pointed out a few moments ago, the way to deal with these people isn't to sit down and have a chin wag. And I think there is a little bit of, the celebrity of it all. I don't see a single celebrity on that board. I don't see anybody that I'd be interested in having my photograph taken with. And I'm more to the point, I don't think they respond favourably to audience participation. So I had a pop climate change, change for Tottenham on X. And one little snotty, and there was a couple of these little Arabs popped up and said, what will you do? What will you do? Well, first of all, I want the big bucks and I want the fame and I want my face on the $1 bill. That's what I want. All right. I don't want to be taken for granted because like the rest of you idiots, I'm not a mug. And I like having that reputation. I was asked to do something a few years ago and it set the tone for me. And I said, what are you paying? And it upset a fortune of people on Spurs community. So I don't do what I do for free. But the way to get, I think, under these people's skin is take stuff that works in life, and it's already been done in football to a certain degree, and transpose it. We're talking about transferable skills here. Things you can do where you won't end up in a police station unless you really push it. Now, let me think of the teams. Reading is one. I've now forgotten them all. But there's about Norwich City was another when they were in the playing in Europe in the Premier League, throwing tennis balls onto the pitch. And I'm not talking about a row of people, because this is the other thing. You can't organise fun. You can't organise laughter, but you can tell people, and it cuts down the odds of there being a grass, a rat in the hen house. Just bring a tennis ball in your pocket and just toss it onto the pitch because it will interrupt play. Leeds United at Elland Road, they did a deal. Leeds United before one of their previous owners left, and you got a pork pie included in the price of your inflated ticket. And what did the Leeds United fans do? They threw the pies onto the pitch. Yeah. In Italy, they've had a pig's head hurled onto the park. And the other thing I'm in favour of as well, because I was always a fan of them, and I had to Google it this morning, and it still exists, is the business of doing a flash mob, where you all pick a time. And what's the crazy thing is there's so many people, right? There's thousands of people there. Get them to all go and stand in the shop, and you block the commerce. It'll be like giving them a power outage. Now, this is civil disorder with a comedic twist, which will get published by all the broadcasters and draw attention to the problem that you're complaining about. One of the problems we have with all of these other things is that there's an awful lot of, well, I'm giving a bit, but what am I getting back? Because you go and have your protest and then you're in the stadium and you're buying a pint and you're buying a pie, whatever it is. You're not really protesting at all, truth be told. And there is a fair degree of, well, I'm putting a new coat on and I'm going down the lane for a right tear up with the cameras. And you're not actually getting anything done. Oh, really? Yeah, that's right, because history has proven that all of the other protests that were happening, the bed sheets to change, achieved nothing. Little bit of publicity, but ultimately there wasn't the guts, there wasn't the minerals, there wasn't the fan support for it. So throw stuff onto the pitch and clog the doorways, clog the bars. Just go and stand up. But they don't have the security staff to remove people en masse. So if you go and stand at a till point, one of the cashless terminals, you'll stop them from taking money. You don't even have to look at anybody. You can just have a conversation with somebody. I mean, if the three of us went and stood near the till, most people would say, excuse me, can I just... But if there's 40 or 50 of you there, they're not going to take any money. And that will get their attention.
I think we should super glue ourselves to the crossbar. Meaningful action.
Yeah, that's a bit left wing for me. That's a bit free plasticine, I have to say. And with these dainty hands, I couldn't possibly involve that much.
Can we just actually super glue Vicario to the crossbar?
Well,
that would be better.
Well, that might be the first time in his life he ever keeps a shot out.
Exactly.
Well, there's a greater opportunity of him connecting with the ball in a meaningful way, I think.
It's that analogy that a broken clock is right twice a day, isn't it? The ball's eventually going to hit him, isn't it? So
yeah,
so
I mean,
if he super glued themselves to the gantries and motorways and things, who are they? Climate just
the old oil change or whatever.
Yeah,
let's throw baked beans over the Mona Lisa Club.
If we got our back four to do it, there might be a slight chance we kept a clean sheet for once.
But I honestly think that if it was done in the name of, like you did it, because you could do it with anything. You get patted down. Do you get patted down going into the stadium these days?
No.
If you're having a good day.
Yeah.
If you're you get bags, you get your bag searched. You know, if you're taking a bag.
So you could, in theory. This is my suggestion. You could, in theory, in fact, I'd do a tie-in. I'd get in touch with a retailer and I'd say, go and pick an item from the pound shops or the 99p shop. And you could just do it with a rubber duck. So we're going to have rubber ducks against Brentford this week, or Manchester United this weekend. So you just take a rubber duck. And if you're not happy with the team sheet, you can delay the kickoff by throwing lots of people. I mean, I'm talking about dozens and dozens, hopefully hundreds of people throwing rubber duckies onto the pitch because it would disrupt play.
Yeah, but knowing our luck, our fans would have purchased them at £3 a time from the official club shop, wouldn't they?
Yeah, Tottenham Hotspur rubber.
Are they that cheap? Yeah. I think they're more than that, aren't they?
We're the only club that will start selling tennis balls at £2.50 a pop. Like when you go golf and you lose your ball in the rough, and the next day there's like a bucket of balls in the club shop for a tenner.
The only problem with that as well is that could give the Lewises an idea about how they could increase their revenue.
Yeah, go guys.
No, want to throw a ball on the pitch to disrupt play.
Well, if you think about it,
it's a bucket for £10.50.
If you think about it, I find it quite patronising on a sort of gut level where I spend, say I'm Chris. So I spend all my money on my commute. I take all my time, which I put a value at because I'm miserable. I put all my money into this thing of going to a game. And then I have my ticket, and that comes out direct debit. And that bang, 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 bang. Before I know where I am, if I was to sit down in a quiet room, it's probably costing me a couple of £100 or more to just go to a game. And then you're asking me to protest and then to deduct 15 minutes of the time that I'm supposed to have paid a couple of £100 for to protest something which I don't really have any control over the outcome of that protest, of it being meaningful. Whereas if I was told, I know you're spending a couple of £100, but for just 99p more, you could buy a rubber ducky or a tennis ball, you could show your contempt and huzz it onto the pitch. It needs to be something that could be, for want of a better phrase, huzzed, be thrown, but I think it's a good, fun way of doing it.
Do you know what we should do? Dino the dinosaur, the teddy bears from the Arsenal shop. We should have 62,000 Dino the dinosaurs on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't care what it is. I mean, it could be a bag. Yeah, but no, it could be. I mean, of course, I'm trying to merchandise this so it's commercially appealing, but I'm thinking of something that only costs £1. Because obviously, I went to the Arsenal shop, bought this shirt, discounted down to £30, and now I'm going to hurl it, and it's going to land 3 foot shy of the grass. No, I was just thinking of something that might get a bit of oomph in the air, a bit of traction. Rubber ducky, tennis ball. I don't care if it's a bag of Chewits, just something that will get a bit of oomph in the air, and they'll have to stop.
How about a H branded butt plug or something like that?
That's too small, I'm afraid, sir.
Based on what we saw earlier, I'm not so sure about that.
and the nipple clamps aren't going to hit the landing on the pitch trajectory, because of their size and what have you. But no, something that you could just hurl, like I get, it would be potentially dangerous or offensive, whatever language you want to use, to chuck a bottle of water, but something that is throwable.
It's a symbolic soft gesture, isn't it? It's got to be a symbolic soft gesture.
Not designed to blind a player. Because let's face it, even our beloved Romero, if he got hit with a rubber ducky in the eye, there isn't going to be a lot of sympathy when he's writhing on the floor looking at his hand for blood. Because at the end of the day, it's a rubber duck. It's like a tennis ball. It's a tennis ball. These are things that come into contact with humans that generally don't kill them.
It always reminds me of the Sky Sports coverage of the transfer window.
Oh no,
Harry Birtles at the Stoke City ground or something. And there was a rubber item that was flapped around his head.
And he was talking, and the bloke was going like this with it was a purple dildo. I think the word is we're looking for there. That changed the course of broadcast history because they did it from the training grounds, didn't they?
Yeah. And Peter Odden-Wingy was still in his car waiting to sign for Stoke,
with his bombastic sounds blaring as he headed off to the wrong club.
Yeah,
and team.
Just recircling. It just makes an absolute mockery of Vinay Ventikation's recent program notes about we must improve the squad. We acknowledge the quality. So what have we done? The square root of absolute fuck all.
But you see, this is the thing, and I have to leap in here because that's what I do. I leap in when I smell blood. But this is your classic stuff that these LinkedIn chancers churn out.
Let's tell you something. While your back's turned, we'll do completely the opposite.
Yeah, because if you like I said, I can't use LinkedIn because you never won't believe this, but my first I speak English, so. Like, I wouldn't study Chaucer at school because it wasn't in English. It was in Middle English, which is like saying, yeah, it's a lot like American, but it's just Vulcan or it's Klingon or something. It's not actually what it's supposed to be. But these guys, they can't even tell you that they had a nice cup of coffee from somewhere. They'll tell you that they had to email the CEO to congratulate Rebecca on the sterling work she achieved in delivering a sandwich and a biscuit and all the rest. They just can't speak properly, but they don't get called. You don't have to answer for it on LinkedIn, on the platform, because everybody's just pumping out this virtue signaling hot air. But if you put it in the program, say we want our ambitions are ... and then you don't give them anything, you don't achieve anything. Then you've got, and it's happening now to the Supporters Trust. People are saying, but you've been banging on about fan this and blah, 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 access to the board and having influence. What you end up with, and I hate to be that guy, but I love being that guy. What you end up with is the fan. What was it? The fan. What's it? Board. What was that thing? The fan advisory board, which only takes questions from, and I have to say it, sexual deviants and people who don't leave the house.
Grown adults dressed up as Chirpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hello! I am from another planet, and I've only got one leg. Oh, come in, and I'm cosplaying and being a woman this week. Oh, absolutely, come in. We're fascinating to hear what you say. They don't want to hear from fans. They've got zero interest in hearing from fans.
Well, you just made a comparison, Chris. You said earlier about the fact that depending on what one particular avenue of thought is that they're keeping their powder dry, as it were, for the summer and whatever they might do. Well, look at Crystal Palace. Regardless of whether we think they've spent the right money or not on players, the chairman has gone, we know the manager's leaving, but we've sold a couple of players. We need to actually replace them. And we need to protect our future in the Premiership.
Yeah.
And he's just gone out and done it. Just no ifs, no buts, no committees. Just gone and done it. Whether he's bought the right players that'll be for the future. But at least he's actually taken action. So if there was a problem in the end, he can at least go to him and say, but I did my best. I actually did try. And we got some players. It hasn't quite worked out the way we wanted it to work out. But at least I've gone and spent the money. I put my money where my mouth is. I care about this club. I want us to stay in the Premiership. I've taken action to try and correct that. Hopefully for them, I think that'll be, hopefully that'll keep them, in the Premiership, because I think at least you can, Premier League, because at least you can turn around and say they've spent the money. We, on the other hand, have just gone, yeah, do you know what? I think we're going to be all right. Let's not bother.
Well, how ridiculous.
Sorry,
Talk about stealing a living. That bloke we brought in from Man City, Rafi Mawson or Rafi something or other, head of player transactions. What transactions has he made apart from bringing a 18-year-old kid in on loan and signing some 17-year-old kid from Chelsea?
Well, why do you need a head of player transactions? You just have a chairman that goes, we're going to buy him, and we go buy him.
We've got Johan Lang, who's seemingly not doing anything.
This is the LinkedIn approach, gentlemen. You're so late to the party. It's embarrassing. If I want a coffee, I don't walk to the kettle myself. What I do is I get our barista liaison manager.
Officer, yeah, that's right.
to go through to make sure health and safety and DEI has been complied with, and then I can enjoy my completely moment to myself coffee, knowing that nobody's going to tell me that I'm a racist, bigoted, whatever it is, because that's the way they do things in their crazy, crazy world.
Enough of your conversations with Mum.
Indeed, exactly. Yes, indeed. Exactly. Well, what I said, I think I said this on the chat, didn't I?
I don't read any of your messages, Tony. So feel free.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. No problem. This is going to be news to you, then, mate. So let's. But to me, this is a classic example of that phrase paralysis through analysis. They're spending all that time just analysing this and analysing that and looking at this and looking at that and not actually doing anything. Yeah. And actually, it's easier to not do something. And I know sometimes actually not doing something is a good thing. I can argue that, Man United haven't really been that very busy in the transfer window. I can't even recall if they've actually bought anybody, if I'm bluntly honest. I don't think they did they? And the point is they didn't need to. They're actually in a decent place squad-wise. They're in a decent place. So therefore, this is not the right time to do it. They've got an assistant, they got an interim manager in Carrick, who I think, obviously it's only 3 or 4 games in, but obviously seems to have completely, revolutionised the way they play already. Yeah. Guess what? Because because he's backed by a club, he's backed by a board that actually wanted to play, that actually will support. They probably said, if you need anybody, we'll go and get them for you. But he's gone, well, I don't really need them at the moment. We've got him good enough to work with because they've invested anyway. Whereas what we do is we spend, how many, this professional, whatever his name is, the head of player, the head of holding the pen to sign a player, the head of holding the piece of paper to sign the contract. How many more heads of do we actually need? We can resemble sort of Traitors' Gate in the 1600s with the amount of heads we've got going around the business.
But don't forget, this goes all the way down, Tony, as well, because you've also got. Is there anything more congested outside the M25 than the technical area and the entrance thing from the Spurs pitch getting onto the actual grass? You've got Daniel Levy's brother-in-law, who is there as a player liaison, face-pulling big bloke sort of character, and all these other blokes in suits with walkie-talkies and all this. I don't think the Rolling Stones leave the house with as many people surrounding them as Spurs.
This is the problem where what business has done is business money has bought into the football, and they're running it like a business. But actually, to run a football club, it's very simple. You identify targets that you think are going to improve the playing squad. You then go and negotiate with that person. You offer the right terms. You buy the player. You don't have to go through all this crap about.
Hang on, Sorry, I dropped my pen. Can you just run through those again?
Yeah, radical ideas. You're crazy. You are.
I know it's terribly revolutionary.
You've been smoking some of the stuff.
I'll go to Amsterdam at the weekend, so I probably will be smoking something. But that's just between.
I thought that 8 ball of cocaine I stuck in the post to you had arrived, but obviously you got your different product.
Mate. It's coming by every, so it's been delayed a little bit. So it probably won't be there for a little while.
I'll tell you the greatest Tottenham player who will never play for Tottenham, Vuskovic over in Germany.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
No,
that's not happening.
Feeling is so high after recent performances, specifically against Bayern Munich at the weekend, that bloke's got the world at his feet, and you've got Matthias, who was it? one of the big German players at the weekend saying he looks like he's already played in 3 World Cups, and he's 18 years of age, and he's got to be looking at all these suitors around the world thinking, why do I want
but this is the concept I don't understand. This is the thing. He's owned by, we actually have, he's our player. The fact he's got all these suitors, but this is what I'm saying, it should matter, Chris, because proper football clubs will go, that guy's really great. Like, okay, we can, it's not the same necessarily comparable, but he's what, 18, 19, Vuskovic, something like that, isn't he? He's a young lad. You've got Arsenal who are putting 15-year-olds into the first team. Just do it.
But you're doing, and I'm not being unkind to you at all here. In fact, I'm partially making a joke with reality. But you're doing the halcyon days Alan Sugar in charge of Spurs line, where there was a hole in the stadium roof, and he's looking at, oh bloody, how much is that? And they go, well, they want 9 million quid. And he's watching Nick Barmby fail to cross the ball in training. He goes, how much should we pay for him? 10 million quid. Right, we'll sell him, fix the roof. These are basic things that you do in a business. Going to shoehorn this in, but I've done it in the pub this week. You go in, you go, what's that? I've never heard of that before. Oh, it's a scotch that we have to sell at £8 a shot. Probably means a lot to somebody in some posh wine bar in Scotland. Not in the outskirts of, well, not the outskirts, but not in the city centre of Birmingham. Get rid of it and put in a name that people know. I mean, you don't want to be selling all the like Foster's, Carling, blah, 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 but there is a certain brand recognition stuff, and you don't want to limit your audience, paint yourself into a corner. Just do the obvious things. We've got some really nice white rums that are not cheap, but why aren't we selling Malibu?
I mean, I'm not looking at all these rose-tinted spectacles, but the fact of the matter is we've become so corporate that we actually don't think like a football club anymore. We haven't thought like a football club for a long time, and it takes somebody like Crystal Palace to actually remind us of the fact that there is a football club there that just goes and does business. It doesn't need a transfer panel. It doesn't need analysis of this. It doesn't need that. Yeah, they'll do their homework and they'll do their bits and bobs and due diligence, which we never do. In fact, we're so hang up in analysis, we don't actually look at things that we've said it before. I judge with my eyes. I judge by what I see, as opposed to what the data tells me. The data will give me an indication, but I then look at what's on the pitch and go, okay, that's not necessarily tying up with that. And also, I don't care about XG and all that other bollocks. I care about what happens on the pitch, and I care about how many goals we score, and I care about how many chances we create, and I care about how many times somebody crosses the ball and doesn't crack into the first defender. That's the things that I care about. I care about what I see. And clearly, Crystal Palace have gone, right, Gahey's gone. We need another defender. We need another bit of this. We'll go and get these players. And that to me is the sharp relief of a corporation against a football club.
And I echo that entirely. And when I looked at the images that the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust that Chris sent me at 4:30 this morning, or some in another life, presumably while you were still wearing your underpants, which is a massive concern. But either way,
that's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed.
He may as well have been sporting them as a jaunty bonnet. I mean, who knows what goes on when the record button hasn't been hit. But the reality is, I saw those pictures, and what did I get? Because I'm me. I do the Lord Sugar thing. Look at that and go, no. A PowerPoint presentation, you say? Suddenly, I turn into the casting out the moneylenders scene. Just smashing stuff onto the floor. No, go away. We don't want this. Who rented this room? Who's supplying the snacks? This is a massive waste of time and money and resources. I'm a throw rubber ducks guy at people.
Revolution wasn't started by a PowerPoint, H. Revolutions aren't started by PowerPoints.
No,
they're started by actions.
If you want to change,
that mean something.
If you want to change, don't tell me you're clambering for change when you're wearing your best CP company coat, hoping that the TV cameras show up, and you stood there with a repurposed bedsheet, and then you're going in and you're spending all your money. You're not clamouring for anything. You're clamouring for attention. Throw rubbish at them. Throw stuff that won't hurt the players, but will be. And there's been another disruption at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The fans aren't happy. Last week we had rubber ducks, and this week we've got inflatable sex toys or whatever it might be. You know, something that pokes fun at them but is disruptive, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's anonymous. And the anonymity, because this isn't like making racist gestures or holding up a sign that says something deeply politically nasty or whatever. This is, I'm throwing a rubber duck at you because I think you're stupid and you've wasted my money. And not a jury in the land is going to put you in prison for that. The worst thing they'll try and do is make themselves look even more daft and issue a ban on a season ticket holder. Well, guess what? There's plenty of people that aren't season ticket holders who, you know, would be prepared to take the risk. Just make fun of them. That's how Mel Brooks dealt with Adolf H. Incidentally, I know it's a slightly thing, and don't bring him into the argument, but he made fun of one of the world's greatest monsters. You know, we know all the grimy stuff, and we know people should react appropriately to grimy stuff. But if you make fun of him, Springtime for Hitler, for example, what a great film, the producers. But that's how you bring that guy historically to his knees, by ridicule. And we need to ridicule this ownership.
We should talk to the Chinese. Talk to the Chinese, get them to manufacture lifelike 4'10" inflatable Daniel Levy's and fill the stadium with inflatable Daniel Levy's.
Now we're talking.
For our knees, wouldn't it?
Now we're talking. This is how history has taught us that you don't invade Russia in the winter, and it's always great to get into a coaxis with the Chinks. Let's get the widescreen boys in and do it properly. Inflatable Daniel Levy's but
also your idea, H, about this form of civil unrest is really also, there's another upshot to this as well. Is if that every time that happens and a kickoff is delayed, they get the FA will fine the club.
Correct.
And it may only be symbolic gestures that the club doesn't really care about. You know, it might be 15, 20 grand or something like that. But when you're looking at bean counters and spreadsheet accountants, every penny counts to them. So therefore, if you start doing that at every home game, and the FA brings charges against them for failing to control their crowd or what have you, the spectators, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, you've got 40, 50 grand fines being dished out every couple of months. And that does have an impact eventually. So, you know, on top of the action and the reputational damage and the brand damage and the ridicule, we'll get a bit of ridicule as well ourselves as a club. But I think we're all well past the stage of ridicule really matters that much more. You can't get more ridiculed than we are at the moment. But it also has a financial impact as well. So therefore, there's a two-pronged attack there. And that's when, whether they will listen to it or not, the only thing they do listen to is, I'm not making as much money as I was recently.
Do you know what really?
And if you start throwing inflatables, for example, which I think we can say pretty safely are inexpensive to buy, sort of thing you can pick up in a pound shop. Again, I use that as a point of reference, the money involved. And you buff it along and somebody will buff it onto the pitch. It won't take long if you've got 20, 30, 50, 60 people doing that at one game for them to say, oh, and there's an inflatable duck or inflatable, teddy bear or whatever has turned up on the pitch. The referee's indicating that he wants the thing removed from the course of play. They won't put up with it these days. They won't put up.
We might mistake them for new signings because they'll probably outperform some of our current players.
And the ball's falling off a Darren Bent inflatable. Have that.
Do you know what's really getting me at the moment is this term that we've been reading, the higher ups, referring to the. You just think, oh, come on.
Well, you know where this has come from, don't you? This has come from the journalists. I better keep this short, otherwise people are just going to be slitting their throats. But this has come from the journalists who are always looking for new ways of I'm hearing. So it's almost like they've got a secret little pathway into the boardroom. Doesn't exist. I'll tell you what the journalists want to do, right? And I speak from experience because I'm in the same game, whether you like me or not. I don't profess to be a journalist. Stop publishing rubbish. You've killed your industry. It's not AI. AI produces a wealth of materials for you to look at a glance without. AI is producing what Google should have been if it hadn't monetized everything. There's a little tip for you. And if you want AI produces funny pictures with funny fingers. It's not AI that sunk the business.
Yeah,
it's
but
imbecilic journalists.
It's the same. It's not only that, but it's both though. It's garbage in, garbage out. AI will only learns from the garbage it actually reads and studies. So it's the algorithms and the way it works.
I know people who use AI in healthcare, for example, is one thing I can think of the top of my head, and it is an invaluable business tool, and it's now become part of the business because it allows you to get proper, like peer-reviewed, proper shit, if you want, for a better phrase, to be in circulation. You don't have to wait for it to go to the printers. You don't have to wait for it to be. Everything's already signed off, and it filters all the guano out of the way, and you're left with the stuff which you can then give to somebody to help train them and all the rest of it. Whereas the stuff with the football thing, it's getting there, but the quality of the stuff that's being published is so poor. And the thing is, you get a credit that your information came from, as said by Caught Offside, the Boy Hotspur, whatever it might be. You don't get any clicks out of that, though. Don't get a single click. You don't get anybody come through to your website, and you don't get the advertising revenue. And that's what the business model currently is based upon.
It's even
they've set fire to it. They've set fire to it. I don't know if it's going to survive.
Even the Sky Sports transfer window, which was for me a few years ago, was compulsive viewing right up until 11 o'clock. You were virtually. I remember having it on in the background. Most of the day, right up to 11 o'clock, absolutely glued to the television in a lot of the time because it was actually interesting and there was stuff coming out that was actually relevant. These days, it's any old crap will do, and it's now been diluted to such a degree that you actually cannot tell the quality from the crap anymore.
Well, what you've got is a guy sat there. So the player's name is X and the club name is Y. And we understand that there's been obviously a situation at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, blah, blah, blah. And they are taking forever to give you the information, which could be delivered in 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And they think we're stupid. It just isn't working. The amount of comments that I have seen when I was online yesterday and the day before and the day before that, particularly building up the transfer, and people just saying Sky Sports used to be a go-to, used to be hugely important. Yeah. It's now utterly irrelevant.
You used to trust what Jim White said, because Jim White would actually say, I've just been on the phone to. No, I would, because 90% of the time he was on the mark. He actually got he had such good connections. He would actually be able to say, I've just had it confirmed, or I've just been told blah blah, and you trust it. You trust that source because you know he's not just going to suddenly make it up and just start spouting crap from nowhere. But nowadays you just get all sorts of crap coming out. But it's all controlled by the crap merchants.
But in actual fact, it's funny you say that, Tony, because I remember that he did used to have that sort of cachet about him. But I remember shortly before Natalie Sawyer was axed and Jim White was axed from that particular role, he was actually making a point of waving his phone around. And I've got an interesting call here coming through from somebody at a big London club, and we'll be talking to right after the break. And of course,
you were in Brazil. Well done.
Well, they're all the same, aren't they? The old sweaties. But it was just guano. It was just guano.
No, but the racism card had to be played there sometime.
I miss
that's a particular strain that's called geo-racism.
I miss your mate as well, Jonathan Barnett, coming out and doing some stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Jonathan's tied up at the moment.
Were they good parties he used to invite you to?
Never said no.
Well, what I'd just like to know is Chris, are you actually in Tucson, Arizona because of the Epstein files? That's what I'd really like to know. Are you out there at the moment trying to get your name redacted from the Epstein files?
My lawyers told me I'm not allowed to say too much.
You know those things where they pixelate the person's face? Do you want to stand up and see if we can pixelate the bottom half of it?
I said I was going to make America great again. I'm delivering.
And on that bombshell, look, we've hit the hour mark. I'm going to shout out any more. What do we think? What do we think about Manchester United at the weekend? Any
3-1 Man United.
Ooh, straight out the traps. Tony?
Yeah, I think Man City, we've been their bogey team somehow. I don't know why. We just are their bogey team. Yeah, we've had a couple of losses to them, but generally speaking, we go there and we normally do something. Man United aren't the same, but I mean, we came now with a couple of extra players. We came now, quite within a second or two of winning that game at home. So I'm probably going to plump for a.
Remind me never to ask you for a prediction again. This is a Gettysburg Address with a few amendments.
Yeah, don't tell me if you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Tony, you've got 3 choices: win, lose, or draw.
Yeah.
Excuse me, four scoring 20 years ago.
Our forefathers stood here and watched the ball kicked in the name of the cricket club.
Well, 4 scoring 20 years ago, when this football club wasn't owned by ENIC and we actually bought players.
Tony, we mentioned Jim White, and Tony starts filling as if there was a power outage on the way.
Honestly, you lot, you're cretins. The lot of you, you're all cretins.
So where did we get win, lose, or draw, or abandon?
I say draw. I say
draw.
Draw. I say draw.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to United. So put that on your coupon. Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Tony, you look resplendent. Chris, I'm nervous to describe you based upon the charges that may be issued.
I think resplendent is probably not going to get it done for Chris, is it, this time around?
Absolutely bloody not. Right.
Engorged, I would say, is probably a good one.
Say what?
Engorged.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you want to be careful with the aircon in there. It looked like you got it up too high.
Testosterone levels are through the ceiling.
Ricocheting off the walls.
Yeah.
And on that note, au revoir.